The blessings come down.
Okay, nothing's changed, but here we are today. Hey, Chad.
How are you?
I'm well. I taught a yoga class this morning, hence I'm in all white getup.
Oh, baller.
Hindu temple in Maple Grove. So
Hindu temple.
Yeah, so really cool energy. It's amazing. Like they have all of these old they have a temple, they have prayer rooms, they have statues to the different Hindu gods, Shiva, Vishnu, Brahman, etc. And it's just energy, man. Like people who've been there, who've probably done way more yoga than me, and I'm teaching, and I'm like, I can't do any of these poses. I'm not that flexible.
They're like, this guy shouldn't be teaching us, but we're gonna be cool with it.
We'll zen there.
Yeah. You go to a church and they're gonna be like, no, get down right now.
Well, it's just the huge thing is like all religions are all the same. Like love one another, God's in everything. We're all universally collected. That's the value. And we live in this world these days where I think people are just so me, but they're not willing to learn or ask questions or hear new things. And that challenges me, man. Like it hurts up here.
Man, it hurts here for me too. There and here. Yep. Yep. For those who don't know, Henry is more into the Hindu side of religion. I'm more into the Christian side of religion.
Oh, that's. I'll be honest, Chad. Like
that's a little too far, but you know,
I believe in God.
I
don't know what God is. Maybe that makes me agnostic, but like I believe in Jesus Christ, so I guess that makes me Christian. Like,
well, there you go. Yeah, I believe in whatever is true. That's what I believe in.
I will cheers to that. I would cheers to truth every time. Like we need more truth.
We need more truth. Less people, less opinions, more truth.
Okay. Out of curiosity, so we talked about conspiracy theories, and that's always an in-depth conversation. Do you know what the word conspiracy actually means?
Conspire.
Conspire, yep.
Yeah, like to plan, I guess.
Yeah, totally. And the idea is to plan, but the word originates from Latin, from conspirare, conspirator, which actually is to come together and essentially breathe together. It's a way of sharing your presence with each other. Very cool. Since like early 1900s, they've kind of reversed the meaning of the word. Like same with the word gay. Like the word gay used to mean happy, yet in our language, we use it as homosexual. And the problem with how we understand words is we don't know what words mean. And we use words and it's like, you don't know what that means. You have no idea. YOLO.
We just make up words. What words, like emoji, it's all about emojis,
Yeah, it's like, what does the person I'm talking to understand that word means? Because
we have reverted to the caveman. Essentially what we have gone back to.
Oh my gosh.
I happy, you sad.
Honestly, that's a better communication than most of us have these days.
Like, it is, yeah.
I don't know. I feel like we connect on authentic levels, and we've always had great conversations going back. We've known each other since college.
Oh, definitely.
And we met at Gustavus Adolphus, a small town college in St. Peter. And I think something that brought some of our friends together was this need and this want for camaraderie in the regard of like, I want to be authentic with you. I want to be able to share with you the good, the bad, the ugly, not just the superficial, who am I? And I'm trying to impress everyone. Like, that's bullshit.
Yep. Well, and you guys were in a fraternity, and I was in a different fraternity. But, yeah, we all hung out together, because we were friends, So, yeah, it was really a more organic sort of friendship that you and I and all our friends had.
I love that. And I think we all have it in some regard. We have our friend groups. We have the people we talk to often. We have different social circles. But it's also, like, artificial a lot of the time. Like, I don't know your experiences, but I feel like a lot of conversations don't turn around to this stuff. It's like, oh, what movie did you see? Oh, that movie, that's cool. And like, that's great. But like, what if you don't watch TV? What if you don't watch movies? What if you don't care about watching football every Sunday for 8 hours? Like I have friends who do. Nothing wrong with that. But like, I got other things I want to do.
Or the weather, like let's talk about the weather all day, every day. Like, oh, is it gonna rain tomorrow? Like, no, it might snow. Oh, but it's sunny. Oh yeah, well it's raining right now. Oh, really? Because I didn't know that.
How much of that's a Minnesota thing?
It is 99% Minnesota. I lived in Oregon for a year, and they didn't talk about the rain. It would be raining for 3 weeks straight, and it was fine because they, and I love Minnesota. Don't get me wrong, but man, we talk about the weather way too much. We talk about the weather way too much.
Well, I grew up, my first job, official job, I worked at Lund's grocery store. I was like a bag boy. So I basically bag groceries and then walk people with the groceries to their car at like a middle class, upper class grocery store where you paid extra essentially getting the service. And majority of the conversations I had were about weather. We're about football. We're about sports. We're about these like couple main conversation points. Where are you going to go to college? What do you want to do? And they're great. They're wonderful. But a lot of them, it's just like, I've had this conversation 10,000 fucking times.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I should swear or not in podcasting, but
yeah. It's what we do in real life, I guess. I don't know.
Try not to, but occasionally it's empathetic. You got to use that word.
I said a swear word to my mom the other day, and I was like, I'm working my ass off. I'm in my butt. And she's like, in that situation, I'm okay with you saying it. Like, she's like, you are working your ass off. And I was like, okay, thanks, Mom. But let's not use that word around each other because it's like parents are a whole different thing. Like me and you, like if a word slips every once in a while, whatever. But like parents, it's weird.
You don't want to swear. I see swearing kind of disrespectful, but I also see in this world of attention, it's hard to get people's attention. And that's why swearing's used. That's why Eminem swears. That's why a lot of artists swear, is because they want to emphasize the emotion of what they're saying.
Yep.
And it's hard to do it when you just use words because people feel your heart. They don't feel.
Yeah, it's like the swear words catch people's attention. Yep. They absolutely do. Well, and the thing is, like, I listen to like people like Lupe Fiasco.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't swear a whole lot, but the things that he says are like out there. The things that Lupe talks about, like skateboarding, he talked about, or like hip hop being like a religion to some people.
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of crazy stuff that he talked. But like, it wasn't just the normal stuff. You couldn't get away with talking about normal stuff with no swear words in hip hop. Because I suppose Will Smith did
it. Will Smith's a man of many talents.
He is, yeah. He I don't know if a lot of young people really understand that Will Smith started out as like a rapper. Like he was, early 20s, like he was a Fresh Prince, and then Eminem came along and he was like, nope, like he's like Will Smith doesn't, he doesn't need to cuss, but I do, and Will Smith's like, I'm gonna do movies and make millions that way,
Yeah, like. So I have some very out there thoughts and all this stuff, and we can get to any of them, but like he put his heart into it. He believed in himself. He was affirming himself. Like The Pursuit of Happiness is one of my favorite movies.
Oh, so good.
Well, it's the journey. The journey is there's no path to happiness. The journey is the path. And it's challenging because you notice all these things were setbacks in his life. Setbacks trying to get to work while raising his son as a single dad, while living homeless, sleeping in bathrooms. And like, there's a lot of people who are living lives like that.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think a lot of the time we don't resonate. We don't accept them. We just see where they are when they show up. We don't know about their home lives. Like there's plenty of people who go to normal corporate jobs or normal service jobs or normal jobs, and they're homeless and they live out their car, and people don't know it because it's like, how many of us care to ask?
Yep. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, when we see the guys on the street, and we don't realize that could be someone with a master's degree. That could be someone with a family who's just, he got a bad hand in life. Sometimes it's bad medical bills. You rack up the medical bills and your insurance doesn't pay for it, and all of a sudden you're in mass amounts of debt, and they'll garnish your wages. And yeah, but at the same time, it's like once people are to that point, like what they need in my mind is someone to help them lift them out of it. I've been at points where I'm like, yeah, I could use $20, but even more so, I could use a job, or I could use like an opportunity to better myself. And I think honestly, like, he worked his butt off, doing sales and all that stuff. The end of that movie was just heartbreaking. What did he sat in a bathtub with jellyfish? Wasn't that what it was? Or no, that was 7 pounds.
He's in so many movies. They blend
They
together.
just put it. It's like one like heartbreaking Will Smith story,
Oh.
and then the world ends up ending, and he's with the dog, and
And then we got the different multiple zombie endings. Let's go to
zombie. And then you got a noisy cricket. Will Smith's a man.
I I resonated when you said looking at a homeless person, they might be a master's degree or might be down their luck. And like, this is something that the Kundalini yoga, which has been my spiritual practice and been really powerful in my life, and just finding the depths of loving myself and being truly accepting of things that are hard for me to even share of a lot of the time. And like, I'm more and more open to because I've gone through that pain. But the first rule from the Aquarian age, from Kundalini yoga, is recognize the other person as you.
Yep.
And it's so simple. It doesn't take a lot, but like, what makes us different is what makes us the same. And it's this paradox that who you are, who your parents were, what role models you've had, what career choices, what job choices, what life choices, what social choices, they're all infinite choices. We're making them every single day, whether we know it or not. And that's what makes us all unique, is we're all going through a separate, like almost video game in a sense of our lives.
Yep. Well, they've done cross-cultural studies, where they'll do some in the United States and maybe some in Africa or Europe. And so they do a study all across the world, and they found that people across cultures need the same things, appreciation, importance, to be needed, that sort of stuff. And, basic needs like, love and happiness, that a lot of people will say, no, like, I don't want that stuff, but they still need it in some way, and they get it in some way, and that's across every single culture. We all have very similar wants and desires. We have different interests, obviously. Like, one person's gonna like football, and the other one's gonna like ballet, but in essence, it is all this pretty much the same thing, the same needs. Yeah.
By chance, I was actually just talking about this on the car ride. I was with a couple of friends. I got a car accident a few days ago, and my buddy drove to yoga. I got T-boned. It's a whole ordeal, but another story.
Yep.
But we were talking about like the 5 love languages by Gary Chapman. Have you heard of that by chance?
I have, and my brother told me briefly about them, but I haven't read the book.
So essentially, we give and share love in different ways, and there's 5 generic ways to share love and to give love. And let's see if I can get them off the top of my head. We just talked about them. One's like acts of service, like helping others, giving back. One's quality time, spending quality time with people. One is gifts. One is like words of appreciation. Let's see, what's the 5th one? Physical touch.
Oh yeah, yep.
So we give love and we receive love in different ways. So like, I might think I'm sharing love by praising you or being affirmative, but for you, that's actually not really that big of a deal. You'd rather me spend time with you, or you'd rather me like hold your hand, or you'd rather whatever it is. And it's finding that give take balance, because we're all different.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's such a confusing concept for me when I heard it. And then I would imagine for people who haven't heard about it, is just, that we need love and we give love in different ways, that like what I see as appreciation for myself is not necessarily what I see as giving appreciation, and that's the same as like the Myers-Briggs sort of stuff where, we all have our own basic character traits, and a lot of companies are smart to basically, set people up who are similar, because it avoids conflict, and it makes the environment the best, to get people to get along. And I think in general in the world, that's how things work. We don't get along with certain types, and sometimes they're the exact same people as we are.
Totally.
Isn't that the weird thing? Like,
well, then we run into our ego.
Yep.
Like, it's hard because there are pain points with all of us. I feel the same within my family. I love my parents to death. I love my brothers. I love my cousins, but I don't always see eye to eye to them on the same level. And as I grow up, as I get older, I've taken many years. This has been the last 2.5 years of my life since leaving the corporate world and a lot of sacrifice in that. I lost my really good paycheck, my really good health benefits, like a lot of those things, 401k match, all the things that are great from that life. But at the expense, I got the opportunity cost of having my own time, doing what I want to do, making the choices I want to make for myself, not necessarily for what the world thinks of me. And
Absolutely.
it's hard because like I wasn't happy in that role. I wasn't happy behind a cube because it just wasn't me. Like I love people, but I also love alone time. So it's always like a paradox between the two.
Yep. Well, and I experienced a very similar thing. I was going for that. I want to be the CEO. I want to be at the top of the corporate food chain. But then, I realized like, man, I am really just missing something in my life. And, we think that money all of a sudden is going to start. And not that I started making more money than I made before. I was moving up, but I wasn't getting happier. I was feeling more kind of a sense of sadness because I wasn't getting the other things in life. Life's about balance, I think, in general. And I work in a cubicle setting now, but it's 40 hours a week. It's the same schedule. And I go to work and I leave. And when I'm gone, that's not on my mind anymore. Like I'll have dreams about it and I get mad. This is I'm like, brain, do not do that stuff anymore, because I can completely relate. Like you dedicate your life to something and it turns out to be something that you don't realize, it's not going to be that way. And it's just like, but that's life. Like you're saying, happiness is a journey. It's not a destination. We're never going to reach our destination, whatever, I guess until we die, there's always going to be
You're already at your destination.
There you go. Yeah.
Your destination is this presence, is our conversation right now.
This is where we are. Yep.
It's every breath. It's just being appreciative. You don't know when you're going to see your family again. You don't necessarily know how long your parents are going to live, or someone could get in an accident. Like I actually had a coworker of mine about 3 months ago at my corporate world, who's on my team. He actually had a heart attack and died.
Oof.
He was 32.
That is insane.
36. I think it's 36. Okay. Regardless, 32, 36.
Yep.
He looked in shape. He had a good job. He had a good paycheck. He had a wife. He had a 2-year-old son. Like, bam, mind blown.
It's insane. Yep.
And what do you think about it? Oh, I'm just going to go back to work. Like, that's how the corporate world moves. You might have a letter. In my experience on birthdays, someone would maybe get a letter. One person would remember the birthday, and that'd be that one person who got everyone else to sign. And then you'd have maybe like an hour party, but like, that's it. There's really not much love there. It's just like, oh, it's your birthday. I get cake. Yay.
Yep. Yeah. When I was working at a Subway, actually, and I was working with this girl. She was the nicest girl, and this was in the news. Actually, it was I think this was before you and I even knew each other. But she got actually murdered in a cemetery near St. Peter, where we went to college.
Damn.
And the next day, like they're like, yeah, so this person got murdered, and somebody better go stock the bacon. Like it was, it's just like on to the next thing, and we're like, this is a human being who we worked with, and we're not going to do anything about it. And I think, management, honestly, sometimes they're just afraid to take risks because they don't want to, maybe
100%.
Yeah.
I love the maxim. I'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yep.
And like, I kind of live my life that way, and it could be good, bad, and ugly, but I've had incredible experiences, and I've had a lot of opportunities that I would never have had if I didn't have the courage to say what I want, ask what I want, or be aggressive and be like, hey, I'm going to go after this. And I think a lot of the times we wait for life to happen to us. And I fall victim to this as well. Like I'm not, you know what I mean? I got imbalances like every other human, but it's okay. You have to accept those imbalances with yourself and learn from yourself, learn from others, be curious.
Yep. Yeah. And if you're not going for, I think I learned in the past that like by missing shot, I'm never going to get those shots again. So I take shots that maybe if people are like, oh, why are you doing that? And I'm like, no, because I don't want to miss this opportunity. Like moving to Oregon, a couple of years ago, People are like, oh, I don't know if that's a good idea. My dad was kind of worried, because they're parents and they do that sort of thing. But I loved it. And yeah, it didn't turn out. It didn't turn out perfect. It was in some ways very painful. But I have all those awesome memories. It's beautiful out there. I probably want to move back to the West at some point. Who knows? But yeah, if you don't take chances, you're never gonna get that opportunity back.
Oh, I agree. I resonate with that, because if you didn't have those chances, if you didn't take that pain, we wouldn't be having this exact conversation right now. Yep. Because of all the choices we've made to lead us to this point. Even the 15, 20 minutes we spent switching between apps, that's part of the process. Like who cares?
Like, just got a bunch of old people learning how to use phones. Like, like, how do you answer this thing? Like,
oh my gosh. Well, that's the thing is, like, I think we're so blessed because, like, we're millennials, and people hate millennials. A lot of people are like, oh, these millennials are, they're spoiled. They think they deserve so much more. They aren't willing to work their hard. I'm like, well, it's not that we're not willing. It's the value of why are we doing this, not following direction, of which, like, I worked in the allowance for credit losses at US Bank. It's a top 5 bank. I was a floor below the CEO. I reported to some high up people, and I was basically told a lot of the time, follow procedure. This is how you do your job. You just follow what to do. And it's like, wait, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing expecting different results. This system sucks. I understand why you want consistency. There's a lot of value there. Like, I agree, but you also have to be able to improve the process, find out what doesn't work, find out where mistakes are made. And you don't know where mistakes are made until you make mistakes. Yep. And that's something that, like, it's a thought experiment. And I think this is something that, Chad, you and I do a good job of. You can entertain a thought without having to accept that thought.
Devil's advocate sort of stuff.
Totally.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't make you 100% agree or disagree, but the willingness to look at from a different perspective besides your own is something that in our political world, in our social world, in our world in general, it seems like people are becoming more and more divisive about.
Oh, definitely. And the thing is, I think you learn that in college. Largely, we learn that in college. And a lot of these politicians, they know how to do that. But that's not what's going to get them attention. People aren't going to sit there and listen to people have an intellectual discussion. Hopefully people will want to listen to us, and people do listen to intellectual discussion, but not on the mass scale that politicians need, where I need millions of people to watch me. So I'm going to sit here pointing fingers and blaming people, because that's what's going to get people to pay attention to me. Not, oh, let's talk about the subjects, but like, you are bad at your job. You need to stop doing this. You need to start doing that. Where's that going to get you? Nowhere, except for elected. And then you get in office and you got to keep doing that stuff, and it's just.
And then you're fundraising already. Like, the first 6 months you're in office, you're spending a third of your time fundraising to raise capital to pay for your next election. And then we have this cycle where the people who are politicians are only looking for short run solutions. Yep. And I grew up very liberal because I have liberal values. I believe everyone should be treated equal. I believe that men, women, race, religion, creed, sexuality, like, I still see you as a human being. I don't care about any of your stuff. You do whatever you want to do. Like, if it doesn't affect my life, more power to you. I love you. And that's just how it is. Yet in my political views, I've leaned a lot more libertarian, which is accepting of others, but also limited government. And that's an area where I disagree with a lot of people. Like, I'm in the yoga community. I volunteer like a nonprofit and a food shelf. And a lot of people there are very, very liberal. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not disagreeing. But I think they get caught up in the idea of what the end effect is versus what the end effect actually is.
Yep.
And that's a huge area of struggle for me, is like, I believe every single human in the world has a right to go to college, has a right for healthcare, affordable healthcare. They have a right for it, but that doesn't mean that they all end up with the same care. Definitely. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, I think when you're an intellectual, you see things as, okay, this makes sense. I wish things would be this way. I think the unfortunate thing is a lot of people in this world don't make sense. They make decisions off of emotion. They make decisions. And that's not necessarily a criticism. I wish I was more like that sometimes. I wish that I could just go with the flow, you know, without thinking and analyzing. But the thing is, you know, it takes all sorts in the world. And unfortunately, you know, communism is an awesome idea. Let's all
Hmm.
get the same thing. Let's all be equal. But unfortunately, what happens is somebody rises to the top and starts controlling all those people,
Hmm.
you know, and until we can find a way to make sure that doesn't happen, communism won't work, you know, and capitalism is kind of getting to the point where like that's you know, and so some awesome ideas that I wish that would work better, you know.
Well, part of it's the education system. Right now, if you interview people, mostly across colleges, I think 30 to 40% of college students, and I'm guesstimating on this number, but it's around there, they relate to the idea of socialism. And if you think about socialism from an end standpoint, it basically is everything's provided by the government. Everyone theoretically chips in, and wealth is divided from the people who make a lot of wealth to the people who make less wealth, and it's split as like by taxes. This is how they want to control it.
Yep.
What they don't show you is the lifestyles of the people who are actually making the rules are significantly better than the lifestyles of the people that they want to have equal.
Yep.
So there's a hypocrisy between those two things. And like socialism's failed. There are many examples. Maoist China, we can start with. Venezuela currently right now is hyperinflation of over 1,000,000% a year. Most
Yep.
people don't even know what that is, but that's another
Economics
intellectual
terms.
economics terms.
Yeah. Yep.
But the point is we've lost truth. America is different than every country in the world, not because we're smarter, not because we're hardworking, not because we're better, because we were founded on a set of principles that was about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It started with white males. That's some bullshit in the history that kind of bothers me because we happen to be white males, which automatically categorizes in this part of that discussion. But the real value is the principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for everybody.
Yep.
We don't have that right now at all.
I
In
agree.
America, we do not have that.
Yep. I think there are select groups of people who have freedom, and then there are other groups of people who have a lot of freedom. But if you cross a certain line, nope, you're done. You have no more freedom. If you have a felony, for example, you can't get certain jobs. You can't get you know, certain privileges that most people have. And yes, you made a mistake in the past, but should we really be stripping people's freedoms away, you know, because they did something 20 years ago, you know? And, you know, you think about racial inopportunity. They've done studies where, you know, a person with the name Dwayne gets hired less than a person with the name Eric, because Dwayne tends to be more of a African-American name and Eric tends to be more of a Caucasian name. And they've done studies about this sort of thing. And it's like, you know, they have shown in these studies, not just a theory, that these prejudice exists. And yes, theoretically, we can all do awesome things, but realistically, no, it's not going to happen for most people.
Well, there's so much depth to that, and there's so much depth to Dwayne and Eric that we don't know from the name. Because, like, where did you go to school? What kind of community were you in? Or your parents divorced? Did you have both parents? Did you have any parents? Did you have people who were able to spend time with you, read to you, hold you, love you, show that affection when you're younger? If not, it sets up a perpetual cycle where then fathers aren't in their children's lives, and then their children end up going through the same repeat patterns of their parents. And I think part of the role of millennials within this day and age is to understand where our parents made mistakes, where our parents were amazing and valuable and provided us with lots of opportunity, and finding a balance between how we learned and how we want to teach our kids. And I think that's really challenging because we come from such wide ranges of experiences and journeys. Like I remember growing up, I'm grew up with privilege in my life. And I say that not white privilege, I'm saying that economic privilege. Like, I don't know how my parents struggled. My dad worked at a Pizza Hut. He moved here from England. He managed a Pizza Hut. He worked his ass off. He worked 100-hour weeks. He consulted. He worked at a big company, but he was working on the side while raising a family. And I'm not saying that he worked harder or less hard than a different family, but he also sacrificed for that family as well. And I'm not saying, again, comparison to other people, but we go through our experiences based off of our actions and our inactions.
Yep. Oh, definitely. Well, and I look at my parents versus we have some relatives and who are in a different situation. My parents own their own business. You know, when I was growing up, they decided to let it go because they were finding that they were having to spend too much time. They could have made mass amounts of money at that. Who knows? The sky's the limit with businesses. It can be. You know, Uber started out as just an idea. You know, and it,
Every company started out with an idea.
yeah. And actually, you know, he started out with PayPal, right? And blew up with that. Anyways, that's besides the subject. So, and then we have this relatives who the dad has a business, became very rich. They have a lot of money, but the family just did not keep it together. And it's very sad to see, you know, and I love them and I wish that things would have worked out better. But unfortunately, that's what you know, sacrifice can do. And with your situation, I would imagine your dad was out working. Your mom, was she taking care of you?
Yeah, my mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Yep.
I'm really grateful and I'm lucky to have her in my life. But she also spent a lot of time. She volunteers a lot. She works in elementary school. She has pretty much run a lot of the charity events and festivals and things. So my parents serve. My parents are both very active in the community.
Good.
They're generous with their time and their wealth. And I think that's something that I learned so much more from my parents, from their work ethic, from their ability to see the big picture, but also ask questions and teach me to have an open mind about things. And I find it kind of funny because I'm doing all these things right now in my own life where I've sacrificed a lot of my own wealth potential by leaving the corporate world, and I'm doing consulting on the side. Like I play poker tournaments, and like I do cryptocurrencies. I'm very down. I teach yoga. I'm like all these random things, but I don't have the stability that my parents wanted me to have because of the sacrifices they made to give me the freedom. Like I actually don't have any student loan debt, and my parents paid for my college, and that was their gift to me. That was all their sacrifice. And I'm really grateful because from a finance perspective, like this is an area I'm very deep in. Pretty much the only debt you can't get out of is student loan debt and some medical debt. And
Yep.
it's bullshit. It is bullshit. It's fake.
Things that you need. You know? Yep.
Yeah. Look at historical college costs. College costs $500 for a year. Part of that's inflation. Part of that is also supply demand. Companies and institutions make a lot of money from you going to college. They have nice. Gustavus just had a $400 million donation.
Oh, I saw
something
that.
insane like that,
Yeah.
which is cool because it's cool. You give back to the communities that you're a part of, and I think that's really valuable.
Yep.
But it's also different opportunities set you down different paths. And I think that the invention of the internet and the invention of this ability to communicate education and information around the world is going to make us have such a better generation of kids, and our kids are going to be smarter than we are. And the kids before them theoretically should be smarter than we are. We hadn't really touched these because there's some big ones, man. There's some ones out there that I'm thinking about that just piss me off because of the education.
Yep. Well, and the thing is, you know, we have this awesome tool of the internet. You know, there's so many amazing applications that have been used and that continue to be used. There have been regimes that have been toppled partly because people in those countries were able to tweet or, you know, Facebook and get the information out there, and then they're able to band together and, you know, and just some amazing things. Unfortunately, you have cyberbullying and, you know, stalking and all that stuff too. And there's always going to be crime as long as there's going to be human beings. You know, it's just part of our nature. But, you know, the people who have it together, you know, using, you know, their intelligence and their resources and working together to make good things happen. Uber is such an awesome thing. I touched on it earlier. You know, cab. I don't know if you ever like lost something in a cab or like you're never gonna get it back. Uber is like just regular everyday people, and they're, you know, driving around, and it's so simple. You just put it in on your phone. Not really much, you know, risk involved because you know the person that's there on the app, and it's worked out so well. Yes, it's made things worse for taxi cab drivers, but they can Uber drive. You know, like that's just the way that the economy works and the
Oh,
internet works, you know?
well, there's always innovation, and
Mhm.
innovation always. There's a reason we're not riding horses around New York Street. Like,
Yep.
well, it might actually be more efficient, but that's a different story of traffic and how they
Well,
drive.
and it really put the horse manufacturers out of business.
Mm. Do you want to know what they did with a lot of the horse parts?
What's that?
So, I remember in 10th grade, we read this book called The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. And I remember this so vividly. Our teacher, Professor Patrick Duffy, he handed out these hot dog slices to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just giving us hot dog slices. And we're like, oh, yeah, we got hot dogs in class. Like, this is awesome. Like, we're 10th graders. We're little kids. And he's reading this passage. And he starts talking about where the hot dogs are made and what goes into hot dogs.
Ooh.
And this was in the 30s. This is way back even before nowadays. So,
Yeah.
and basically it was like every part of the horse that wasn't used. Yeah, it gets really nasty really quick.
I would imagine, yeah.
I remember reading this and like every single person was just like, I can't eat hot dogs. I kept eating mine. I'm one of those kids that's like, yeah, I'll get more hot dog. I'm cool.
Yeah.
But the innovation is a really good thing.
Yeah.
But that's driven by competition. That's
Yep.
driven by an ability to serve and help people.
Yep.
Good ideas make money, but I've had a million ideas that have tons of value that could make a lot of money. It doesn't matter unless you put the action, the time, your energy, your sweat, your blood, your tears,
Yep.
which is essentially our financial system.
Yep.
Because we get rewarded in dollars or yen or some fiat currency. That's not actually money.
Yep.
Uh,
Simoleons. I don't know if you ever played The Sims.
Well, yeah, it doesn't matter what it is. You trade your energy for a reward.
Yep.
That reward is able to get you more education, more opportunities, more assets, more food, more health care, whatever you're going for, at the expense of your time. Yep. Right? That's essentially how an economy, like there's a lot to an economy. Have you ever heard of Ludwig von Mises by chance?
I have not.
Okay. Have you heard of Keynesian economics?
Yes.
Okay. So the basic function of Keynesian economics, and there's a lot here, is essentially aggregate demand, aggregate supply. Yep. The idea is we can essentially keep printing money to drive the economy to create more demand supply, making the economy, how do I say?
Inflated.
Continuously going.
Yep.
And we don't allow, and we intervene because we as Americans, like Alan Greenspan, we think we're God. We think we're smart enough to control the system. We think we know what everyone's doing. We think we know their behavior. We think we recognize that a logical person would choose hamburger over steak if the value of steak goes up 10 times versus hamburger.
Yep.
Right? Try to keep it simple. Ludwig von Mises, there's something called the Mises Institute, which is for the School of Austrian Economics, which there's actually a really cool rap video. If you go on YouTube, actually, I don't know if we can play it on here, but you go on YouTube and it literally talks about the differences between Keynesian economics and Austrian economics.
And there's some post effects up in the upper right-hand corner with the video. Like do it later, you know.
Okay, yeah. You can Google it just, and it basically compares these different economic theories, right? There's no right or wrong answer because, right, they're theories. We don't know.
Yep.
Yet, with all this being said, we've seen fiat currency. Like, this is something down the conspiracy rabbit hole that I like to go. But if you look up the history of fiat currencies, the word fiat essentially derives from the word for trust. It's essentially trust.
Yep.
And every single fiat currency, there's been over 4,000 plus of them throughout history, has gone to zero. Zero. They're not around anymore.
Yep.
Yet we derive our life to obtain this currency because it's a representation of valuable, just like musical chairs. As long as there's chairs and we can walk around, it's okay. But if people start sitting down and people start taking out chairs, the value goes away. Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's all about trust. You know, it's what is this piece of paper worth? What if, you know, all of a sudden Danimal's yogurt becomes a currency? Totally. All of a sudden trust in this goes up and we can start using it. And people see it differently. That's the crazy thing. People start seeing it differently. Like, oh,
Totally.
like I really need that yogurt bottle. No, it's just a yogurt bottle.
Hmm.
Just like, you know, a dollar is just a piece of cloth, essentially.
Oh,
You know?
yeah. The only the government can take a real asset and make it worthless.
Yep.
Like I say that because paper is an asset. You can write on it. You can send letters. You can do a lot of things.
Yep.
Yet throughout history, like Weimar Germany, super recently Venezuela, it's happened in the Roman Empire, currency debasement. We're doing it in America. Like anyone who thinks that inflation's 2% is an idiot.
Mm.
I used to read federal data on the internet, right? My part of my role is I would go through the Fed papers, the economic data, and I would look at their information and their data. And they use something called a basket of goods. That's one of the general ways to account for inflation. They say, hey, in 1960, it cost you 47 cents for a hamburger. How much does it cost nowadays? Let's look at the comparison of costs versus how much you get the value, and let's see the price change. And what they've done in a lot of these baskets is they've actually replaced the items that are in the basket. So they're like, oh, for a long time we used steak, right? It used to be steak in the basket, but we're actually gonna use hamburger instead of steak because they're like the same thing. Even though steak is a way nicer cut, depending on what steak you get more things, but it's generally nicer than hamburger.
Yep.
We're not using what's the Japanese Kyobi? What's the Japanese burger? I'm like anyway.
Teriyaki, I don't know.
But the point being is we can change the data based on our parameters of how we judge how the data changes. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely.
Like we control the variables. So if you control the rules, like let's say we were playing a game of Monopoly, right? Yep. And you get $200 every time you pass go. Yep. What would happen if partway through the game we said, if you land a Monopoly, you get $10,000? It would change the game. I'm not saying it would just be different. That's just how it is.
Yep.
And like you look at healthcare, you look at how expensive medical bills are for a lot of people. Do you think that healthcare is significantly better than it was 30 years ago? I would say yes in some regards, but is the expense worth that care difference?
Yep. Well, and think about the internet now, how that's changing currency. You know, I make music. I put it online. I don't get dollars back. I get 0.05 cents per listen. And that's the way it is with ads. That's the way it is with a lot of different companies. They make money online based on how many people are clicking. So then why does the dollar even matter anymore when it's not even about, you know, how much dollars you have, is about how many clicks you have. And the thing like cryptocurrency, that's why it's even able to be used, because it's not about physically exchanging goods anymore. Most transactions, especially the large ones, there's no physical, you know.
No, it's all digital anyway.
It's all digital. Yeah.
When was the last time you wrote a check?
I for rent I do what do they call it? Cashier's checks. But I don't like checks because they don't clear for
3 to 5 days. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
People Venmo checks, people Venmo rent. But I work at a nonprofit yoga studio, and they're going through budgets because even nonprofits have to worry about money because money is the energy that helps them drive their business.
Yep.
And an average membership is between $75 and $85 a month. And it costs the yoga studio $30 to $40, which is about 3 to 5% depending on the total cost for the year, in revenue for people to pay with a credit card versus pay for automatic withdrawal from their bank account.
Wow.
And that doesn't seem like a lot, but it's like the rake at the casino. It's slowly taking more money from you. And that's what a lot of middlemen do. Like real estate agents do this. Bankers in a lot of ways do this. Loan lenders. Basically anything involving debt is essentially taking your money, adding on a cost of interest, which is known as usury, which it's an interesting subject then, because what's the ethical number? Should it be 1%? Should it be 3%? Should it be 20%? Should it be 30%? Should it be 40%? And who determines that number?
It varies on how much they can trust you. You know, credit. It's all about, can we trust this person? Well, we can't. We might as well get as much money out of them as possible because we may not be able to recover
Mm-hmm.
our debt. So they're going to jack your interest rate up to 30% or whatever it's going to be because they think they don't have much trust. If you don't have good credit, they don't have much trust in you. And it does make sense. You shouldn't. I don't think a person should be able to keep getting out loans if they don't pay them back. I think that makes perfect sense. I've had credit problems. I worked as a banker. I understand. I understand it, but I can't control my spending. So,
well, I do want to shout out. I have a buddy who teaches a lot of stuff. I used to run a blog with him at the Mastermind Within, and he's great. He has a lot of information available for people for free. I highly recommend checking it out. My buddy Eric, he drove me to yoga today, and he's in the corporate world, and I send a shout out to him. The Mastermind Within, it's a wonderful website on personal finance, your relationship with money, different mathematical ways to get out of debt. Like, I know how to get out of debt. Essentially, you save more money than you make. You have two different options. You have a debt avalanche method or debt snowball method, which are the two mathematical ways to pay off debt. One is more, you pay off the little balances that you owe first because it's a psychological win, because you're getting rid of one credit card, then you're taking all that value, put it into the next credit card, and you're slowly working that way. And then the avalanche method is mathematical, which is actually better than the other one. It's just people like the idea of checking things off. But you pay off your highest interest balance rate first, and then you work your way down, so it saves you the most amount of money for your time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the biggest thing is being okay with being bored. I think a lot of people, especially our generation, we're that instant gratification, generation. And it is one of the things about, I think, millennials that is across the board. I think we were thrown into a culture where I can Google something right now and get an answer. I can go to get fast food. And fast food has been around for a while, but it just now is, throughout the last few decades has become just something that's normal. It's not a luxury, and our generation is so used to now video games, YouTube, and with money, the thing is, in order to build fortune, you need to not spend. And that's a very hard, I get a $500 paycheck. I don't want to sit on $400 of it because then I only have $100 and I worked really hard for it. And that's in the, so our generation does struggle with that. And I know a lot of people who they have a hard time saving because we're such a now culture and ads everywhere. I think the average person sees, I don't know how many ads, hundreds of ads every day between billboards and phones and radio and internet. And it's, but it's something that I truly believe can be fixed. It's just a matter of the right people, doing the right thing. I think we should teach finance at a very young age. That's what I think we should teach our kids how to manage money when they're in elementary school.
The fact that it's not taught at all, like I took an elective class in high school on budgeting. I had that option and I chose to take that class. But the fact that it's something that's used in every single person's life and it's not taught is just a huge, it's not taught on a reason, right?
Oh, they don't want us to know how to manage money.
And here's the thing is you say money and currency are two completely different things. And I get frustrated because people toss around the world money all the time. And money, to me, gold is money. Everything else is credit. That JP Morgan said it. He founded like one of the biggest banks in the country. And guess what? Do you know how much purchasing power you would have if you had $10 from 1913?
Oh, probably. I don't know.
No, I'll do $100. You have $100 cash, $100 US dollars in 1913. What is that worth now?
$1, I'm guessing.
Actually, yeah, it's like $1.50.
Wow. Yep.
Yet, okay, gold. Guess how much gold costs in 1913?
I don't know. I guess I don't know much about gold. I wish I did.
Well, I will gladly teach. At some point, I'll probably sell this stuff because I actually believe gold, silver, cryptos are real value. Another story. In 1913, so the gold standard, how it used to be, is $1 equal $1 of gold. So it'd be a certain weight depending on the place. So you could go to the bank with your paper money and you could say, here's my reserve note. Here's my piece of gold. They were directly correlated.
carats. Like it has something to do with carats, right? Like 24 carats is a
Yeah,
dollar. Something like that.
24 carats is pure gold. That has to do with the purity of it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So like when you hear like 16 carat, 14 carat, 10 carat,
Okay,
the lower you get, the lower the overall percentage of actual gold is in there.
and there's other metals in.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Yep.
So what happened is actually this has been documented throughout history is governments debase currency. So in the Roman Empire, how it used to work is, let's say you had a gold coin, right? And you went to the temple and something cost gold. They would actually shave off a piece of that gold coin. So it would lose only a tiny bit of value, but every time you went, they would take a little bit more off. Then they would take all the gold coins, melt them together, and issue new coins, right?
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. But what happened is, as they started spending more money on social programs and they're expanding military and providing for food and entertainment for the public, not that we're doing that at all nowadays.
No.
There's no parallels, none at all. But what would happen is they'd remit coins and they'd actually use different types of alloy. So they'd start using copper, or they'd start using iron or nickel, and it would become worth less gold, less gold, less gold, less gold, until all of a sudden you have a coin that has no gold value. That's value is only backed by the ability of the debtor nation, whoever controls the money supply is the power person, his ability to pay it back.
Yep.
Here we get to, parallels between the American Empire and the Roman Empire.
Professor Henry.
It's not professor. It's common sense. It's read a book, learn history, ask questions. Like, I'm not a genius by any mean. I'm a genius as much as anyone else in the world is a genius.
You know about something that honestly is actually very important. I think a lot of people know a lot about the Kardashians. A lot of people know a lot about, maybe like McDonald's history. And
Sporting teams.
And that's fun. It's fun stuff. But there has to be people in the world that care about the stuff that other people don't. I was a psychology major in college because I'm fascinated with how human beings work. I don't think I could have. I tried majoring in business, but I just my mind doesn't work that way. Your mind, I think, is a little bit more financially. Mine, I'm so out there all the time that
So I think two things on that comment. First of all, you make a really good point. We all have specialization. We're able to spend time on a specific thing that interests us, which is for the benefit of everybody. It's more beneficial for you to pursue one thing really well, because you're able to contribute to the overall knowledge of society, right? Like with your music production, I'd have no idea what you're doing, but I appreciate it. And if we want to collaborate on I do some rap videos, we could have fun with that.
Of course.
But you would have knowledge that I would say, hey, Chad, I trust you on this. But I am a person who likes to learn. So I would ask questions, which would make you better as a teacher because you would explain to me in a way that I could understand.
Yep.
So my goal in the world of finance and consulting and everything is to teach people how to learn. I don't care about what you're learning, but I want you to understand how to learn, how to ask good questions, how to frame it in a way that people resonate with. Like, some of us are visual, some of us are auditory, some of us are hands-on kinesthetic. We learn in different ways.
Yep. Well, and that's the great thing about college is it teaches you how to learn. And that's why businesses like college students so much, because they have learned how to learn. Most of what you learn by the time.
Have they though?
Hopefully. Let's hope that paper means that they have learned how to learn.
I think the value of college is vastly being degraded. I'm not saying college isn't a good thing at all, but the more people go to college, the less valuable a college degree is.
I agree. And if they're going to make it free like they're talking about, it's going to make it even worse,
Oh, yeah. Why'd I spend $100,000 on my education that I have to pay back? But here's the thing, is if every single person said, I'm not going to pay back my student loans, everything was shut down.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, this is the fallacy. You know what's going on in France right now, right? The yellow vests? Oh, dude.
I don't watch the news a lot, I'll be honest.
Okay, you watch the news?
I don't watch the news a whole lot.
Okay, first of all, I think most news is fake news. I'll be honest with you, because if you look at who actually controls the corporations, they're all controlled by like 3 or 4 people, and they pretty much say the same thing. It's all perception management. They control the narrative, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's sensationalist based. A lot of it is about getting clicks.
Totally. And guess what? Guess what gets clicks?
CNN and Fox News.
Well,
Oh,
fear,
fear. Oh,
sensation. Yeah. Fear,
absolutely.
sensation, war, violence, OJ Simpson murder trials.
Yeah.
But
Bad things, basically.
yeah, basically bad things because
Yeah.
it's attention based. It's
Yep.
a bad thing. So what's happening in France? And an interesting thing, and I don't know the exact rule off the top of my head, but there's a law in France where you are required to keep a yellow vest in your car in case of an emergency, so you can stand out as a, like if the lights go out as a reflective surface, it's safe to have a yellow vest, right? Does that make some sense, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
But just like every single rule, that law makes sense because it's framed in a way that makes it make sense, right?
Yep.
So right now what's going on in France is they have these huge protests. And I'm talking like hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people. A lot of them are rural farmers, or they started off as rural farmers because there was a tax that was being put on gasoline. And right now, Europe pays significantly more for gas than we do in America because of the taxes on that gas. That's why if you go to different states, it'll pay a lot more or less depending on where you are, right?
Yep.
And what's happening is a lot of the people who are farmers, who are living in rural areas, who actually are driving pretty far to go to work, that tax affects them much more than it affects someone who takes the bus to work, which makes, again, it makes sense. But then you think of why they're putting these taxes. And it's to make up money to pay off debt, to pay for the budget, which makes sense, right?
Yep.
But then where are they spending the money? Do the people who are paying the tax agree and are being beneficial from where the money goes?
Absolutely.
And they're not.
Yep.
Like most money that's spent by the government doesn't actually help the majority of people.
Yep.
It helps a small select few.
Well, think about it this way. So I don't drive currently. I was in an accident last year, and I decided I don't want to drive. So, however, I'm paying taxes on streets that I don't really even use. I use the sidewalks more, but a lot of my taxes go to, and I'm not going to complain about it. You know, in my mind, once we pay taxes, they're not ours anymore. They're the government's. That's the way I see it. But you know, the thing is, like, we all pay taxes on things. We're probably not going to get Social Security. You know,
no, we're not at all.
Yeah, we're not
zero chance. It's not going to exist.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, you know, but that's the way I see it. That the government, we elect officials who then make decisions based on their logic and their knowledge. Because honestly, most of us would not want to deal with these issues on a day-to-day basis. You know, the things that they do, most people would not want to be like, okay, we need to put money towards roads, we need to put money towards this and that. But that's their job, and we trust them to do it. But yet, a lot of people like the armchair quarterback thing, where, you know, I wish they would spend more money on roads. Well, you know, what about this? You know, I wish they would cut funding from the military. Well, then expect an increase in terrorism. You know, like things like that, and that people don't realize are very difficult decisions. And I would not want to be a politician because it's just, man, it is.
But you know, it's a heads you win, tails you lose situation. Okay, so again, I have some very out there thoughts in the world. I have a lot of beliefs that probably they'd resonate with people because people realize that I'm speaking the truth that I've come to understand. And that's part of what I like to bring. Most wealth, most money, most wealth currency that's spent is the military. It's on healthcare. It's on some education. Like, have you seen the website nationaldebtclock.org?
Yes, I have actually. Yeah.
Cool. Yep. So something that people don't realize. So I went to school for accounting. That was my college degree. Is there's assets and there's liabilities. Liabilities a lot of the time are future obligations that you have to pay, like Social Security or Medicare. Right now in America, we have about $250 trillion of liabilities outstanding. That is 10 times plus our GDP. That is money that we will honestly never. The only way for us to pay it back are two options: hyperinflation or bankruptcy.
Yep.
And they sound kind of extreme for people, but there's a lot of information out there that people are oblivious to because they haven't researched for themselves. They haven't looked into it. They haven't asked questions because they trust that the people who are in the government are looking out for them. And I think that's one of the reasons why Donald Trump was elected, is because a lot of people said, hey, these politicians aren't looking out for my best. Yeah, they're not looking out for my best interest. So we want to have a new president. And that movement's going around. President in Brazil was a right-wing candidate who just got elected. And this is part of the whole political spiral.
It's always back and forth, up and down. Yep, absolutely.
It's funny because people like hate Trump, and a lot of it is because of his policies. Yet a lot of Democratic candidates have said the exact same thing, and they never got the feedback that Trump got because the narrative is anti-Trump.
I don't side Democrat or Republican because I like to think independently, and I think you're the same way.
Totally.
But the thing is, if I see something, I don't like a lot of what Trump does. I think he's made a lot of really dumb decisions, to be honest. But the thing is,
can you tell me some of them? Because I actually am a Trump fan, so I'm curious.
The thing on the bus with Access Hollywood, I'm talking about that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about that sort of thing.
Okay.
However, here's the thing. A lot of people bash him no matter what he does. Mm-hmm. And to me, that negates your opinion when you disagree with every single thing that someone does, regardless of what they do. So I kind of have started seeing that, and I'm like, well, I'm going to start picking out things that he does that I actually agree with. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think it's a race thing. I have a very good Hispanic friend who has always been a Trump supporter. Mm-hmm. And, I know women who are. So it's really not it's an ideology thing,
Well, I think with that is the media wants to make it about race or about sex. And back to our previous conversation is it shouldn't be about any of those things because we all should be equal as humans. Yep. And if you're operating from the light of equality, okay, pick any topic within the Trump agenda. And I'd love to talk about it from both sides, from the left side and from the right side.
Let's go with the wall.
Oh, the wall's easy. Okay. The wall is a simple one. Yeah. Let's think about the idea of border. Why do you have a border?
To separate, nationalities, I guess. I don't know. I mean, originally it was to separate tribes. Now it's to separate nations, because this one wants to believe these things. This one wants to believe these things. If they would combine, they probably wouldn't get along as well as we wish they would,
Yeah. So like I think of a border. A border is like a lot of borders are oceans, rivers. There's a lot of natural borders in the world, like mountain ranges are usually a big national border. The reason you have a border is like that. You have a separation. And I think the narrative for the last 20 years is having a one world order where we're all one, right? We live in this one government, one world thing. Globalization. Yep. And then this brings up the conversation, globalism versus nationalism.
Yep.
And by looking at the results of pretty much every country around the world, people have their own values from their own cultures. And those have been around for a very long time, right? They got it from their parents. They got it from their parents. And there's some good ones. There's some bad ones, right? We can argue for both sides. Mm-hmm. But we have a situation in America where we provide, with government assistance, we provide healthcare. There is free healthcare for a lot of people. If you get shot and you get sent to the emergency room, you don't have to pay for it. They'll charge you, but like you get the care without having to physically pay for it, right?
Yep.
Okay, what happens about unemployment? So I quit my job. I could have qualified to be on unemployment right now. I'm not by my own moral choice, but 50% of Americans, half, are on some type of government assistance, right? What happens when you add more people to that pot?
Well, the lesser group of people ends up supporting more and more people is kind of what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And think about this. Do you think that there's anyone in the world right now, anyone who's applying for legal citizenship in the United States?
Anyone in the world right now who is applying?
Yes, no. Do you think anyone in the world is legally applying to come to America?
Yeah, I actually know somebody from Gustavus who did.
Okay.
But she was already here, she was already here.
My point being, there are people who want to legally join this country, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm trying to go yes, no. I'm trying to make it as extremely opposite as possible. Yeah, so we're going to say yes. We're going to say there's people who want to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you have open borders or when you have an ability to go across the border illegally, yet still qualify for benefits within the country, it's a huge slap in the face to anyone who's trying to join legally, right? Like, I just think about this logically. Hey, you want to join the country? You guys spend 3 to 5 years. Like, I have friends from all over the world, from different countries, citizens, non-citizens, right? It's a lot of work to come into the country on a student visa, on a work visa.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's a lot of work.
Yep.
But
And a lot of money.
And a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of paperwork and all your education to make yourself prepared to pass these exams. Like, most people who become citizens know more about America than the citizens themselves.
Oh, because you have to.
You have to learn and pass the tests.
Yep.
Most Americans wouldn't pass that test.
Nope.
Like, it sounds horrible, but most of them wouldn't.
Most Americans wouldn't pass an 8th grade history test.
Yeah. This it's but, and here's the challenge. So we're talking about a border, right?
Yep.
We're talking about, why do you have a border? And it's to separate people from these different countries who have different rules and different benefits of living in America versus benefits of living in Mexico. You can argue Mexico is a better place to live. You can argue America is a better place to live. It just depends where you are within that country, obviously.
Yeah.
So with border security, I'm frustrated because the logical sense is 100% you should have a border. You should have border patrol. You should have a physical border between these two places. If people can come in, like, it makes logical sense. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that how people get treated while trying to cross is necessarily justified, but it's theoretically invasion. Mm-hmm. If you get 10,000 people trying to cross your border throughout history, that's been war, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so I have a question for you. So okay. let's say you have a neighbor who's having and I'm not trying to, I'm just
be as devil's advocate as possible, Chad.
Okay,
I love it.
So you have a neighbor who's having drug problems in their house, and some of that is, crossing over to your house through the yelling, through people hanging out in the front, who do not look like they're very unsavory characters. Mm-hmm. So what do you, I guess, because that's essentially what's happening. Mexico has a horrible drug problem. They have absolutely, they're desolated with the violence that's down there, and people are escaping to get away with that. It's the same thing as they're coming from Chicago to Minnesota mm-hmm. to get away from the stuff going on in Chicago. So my question is, would it not then make more sense to try to help your neighbor to get that done so that problem doesn't continue to exist, rather than build a higher wall between your neighbor's house and yours? Because those problems are still going to happen. They're still mm-hmm. going to find ways. And that's why I think the State Department is incredibly underfunded compared to the defense budget, because we could be doing so much more diplomacy in this world. And you look at how the European Union has done things.
The E is the joke, man.
However,
okay.
if it can keep wars from happening,
but wars are happening,
but not in Europe.
Well, no, okay. Look at homicide rates.
Yep.
Look at how much of the homicide is associated with drug violence or illegal activity. A lot of those reasons are because the reason why a lot of people carry guns is for unsavory reasons. Yep. But there's also the people who carry guns for their own safety, and the gun debate's a whole nother one.
Yeah.
But I agree, because I think locally, I think we have to make a difference locally. I think you choose where you live based on your economics, based off of where you work, based off where your family, you pick a location to live. I think it's important. I don't think people know their neighbors at all these days. I think most people don't know almost anything about their neighbors. Like, I grew up in a neighborhood where I knew 50 people within 3 blocks of me, because I was out in the yard, I was hanging out with other kids, I was talking to other people.
Yep.
And I grew up in the suburbs.
Yep.
So that's an advantage. I think living in the cities, a lot of the time, you don't know your neighbor. There's so many people there, it's hard to know everyone.
All they're noisy or they're not noisy.
Yep. You only notice them when they affect your life. So
exactly.
If they're loud, you notice them. Or if they're kind to you or make you food, you notice them.
Yep.
I think it's hard, though, because if you, the drug problem, I think people always do drugs.
Mm.
I think that drugs are an escape. Like, I haven't really done hard drugs, so I guess that's not necessarily an area that I'm down. But I've smoked weed, and I admit to that. That's fine. But the reason you do drugs is to get some kind of stress reducer, some relief, some outside factor that can influence your mental state.
Yep.
Because you're in pain, because you have a problem, because you're stressed in life. A lot of things like that, right?
Yep.
So the bigger question then to me comes down to mental health.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I think that is where our country is actually deteriorated the most, is our mental health in this country.
Struggling majorly. Yep, absolutely.
Hence the opioid addiction, hence the high depression rates, the high suicide rates, which are rising in this country.
And benzo addiction, benzo addiction is huge. Xanax and all those other drugs that were originally made to be anti-anxiety, but they're being used recreationally now.
Hey,
and they're causing problems.
Real quick, you've heard of Prozac, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I made a comment about this earlier. What do you think the major ingredient in Prozac is?
I couldn't tell you.
It's basically fluoride.
Huh. Interesting.
Hey, what goes in our water?
Fluoride. Yep.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
That's another conspiracy theory for you that I can bring down.
Maybe they're just trying to make us all less depressed than what the one.
Maybe that's what it is.
Drink more water.
Hey. Okay. So pain, right? People have massive amounts of pain.
Yep.
Look at what's happened with CBD, which has become a huge thing. And like anything out of moderation is a problem.
Absolutely.
Right?
You can drink too much water.
Totally. You can die by drinking too much water.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
So, and to bring this back to the wall, right? To bring this back to the idea of border security. Mm-hmm. You think of cost. You think of how much money it costs to grow weed versus growing cocaine versus producing benzoids, those kind of drugs.
Yep. And
you look at why they cost so much to grow and why they sell for so much higher than what they cost to grow.
Yep.
Right? Because
demand.
Supply and demand. So people want those drugs.
Yep.
So think about it from a business standpoint. Let's say you grew up poor, right? Let's say you grew up without an access to the library, because no one can go to the library for free. No, can't do that. Let's say you grew up where you didn't have your parents. You were an orphan and you were abused as a child. Terrible situation, right? You've had a lot of pain in your life. You might turn to drugs as a way to cope with that pain. But we tend to repeat the same cycles of the people who imprinted those cycles on us. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we repeat the generations, and that's just because that's how we were taught how to deal with things. Mm-hmm. We grew up in the way that we're going to live the rest of our lives most of the time, and unless we make a huge effort to change that.
And it's hard.
It's
hard to look at your demons. It's hard to look at the pain in your life. It's hard to look at where the world is versus what you thought the world is.
Yep. It's like trying to change the direction of a big freight ship.
Totally.
Your life is this freight ship, and it takes a lot of work to change the direction of that. Life isn't a car where we can just like change direction. No, we're going a certain direction.
You can change that way. It just takes a massive. It just takes a massive amount of courage.
That's true. That's true.
There is nothing stopping you from going into work and quitting. I'm not telling you to quit by any means, but there's nothing stopping you.
My circumstances won't change much. My circumstances will only change if I win the lottery or something like that.
Okay. So
if I move.
Well, yeah, I would say I got an open room at my house. I got a duplex I'm selling in Minneapolis. You're always welcome.
This is all hypothetical.
Of course. And, no, and I'm saying it because we are conditioned to believe it's impossible.
Yep.
And I'm just telling people that anything is possible. Whenever, a quote I love to live my life by, and it really resonates, is by Paulo Coelho from The Alchemist. Mm-hmm. Whenever you want something, the universe conspires to make it happen. And I believe that with my heart. Whether people say the lottery is a get-rich-quick thing, right? Like you're going to manifest, okay, then just go win the lottery if you believe that, right? Oh, yeah. First of all, I'm not trying to make money in my life right now. That sounds backwards. That sounds ridiculous, or currency. But my priority is my education, my self-love, and I know how to make money. I know how to day trade. I know how to do some crazy finance things. I can do a lot of things. I can consult for people. There's a lot of skills I have to make money.
Yep.
But I care more about my relationship with myself and my relationship in accepting my path and making my own path than I do in following prescribed list of steps, if that makes sense.
Are those steps going to make you happier? You know,
100%. I love my life. Like I have a lot of financial stress in a lot of ways, and all by choice. I can talk about my financial situation if you're interested, but it's something that's very personal and I'm willing to share, but it's something that a lot of people would look at me and they're like, you're an idiot. You're dumb. You're stupid. You don't know what you're doing.
But they don't know you.
They don't know me. They don't know my experience, my education, my values.
You don't know me.
You don't know me. So there's a tangent on that. A lot of tangents. I don't know if that helped answer the idea of border security, but
you know what? Yes, I think we touched on a lot of things there that are very involved. The wall is not just about a wall. There are a lot of facets to that situation. Why we want a wall between us and Mexico. And the thing is, I think honestly, Canada probably would be fine with a wall between them and us. You know, they're probably like, man, everything going on there, like we want a wall too. But nobody's gonna, you know, I don't know. Maybe a wall happened, maybe it won't. That's not the point.
Where in the world are there walls? Where have walls been built?
Berlin, China, you know, not in the best places, honestly. You know, Nazi Germany had a wall, you know, and that, you know, well, afterwards, they're usually not in very happy places, to be honest. You know, you don't put up the walls where things are going well.
Yeah. So I guess the reason is, why are we trying to put a wall up?
Well, we're trying to prevent bad things from happening, obviously, you know.
So I think of like the Israel, Lebanon, Palestine. They have a wall there. And there's some terrible, terrible stuff on that wall. There are snipers that have blown off little kids' heads.
Yeah.
Like straight up for fun. It sounds horrible, but like that happens. I've seen videos like they could fake it. Who do I know?
No, that sort of stuff does happen. Absolutely. Yep.
And I'm not saying it's Mexico's fault.
No.
I don't think it's Mexico's fault at all. I don't think it's America's fault. I think there's just opportunities for people. And one thing that doesn't get talked about a lot of the time because it's super uncomfortable is people being trafficked over the wall. Or not over the wall, across the border. Yep. Kids being trafficked.
Yeah.
You know how many children go missing every year and are abused, and it's some really bad stuff.
From the Mall of America. Some of it happens in the Mall of America.
It's one of the #1 sex trafficking places in the country.
Absolutely.
And they had a huge arrest sting when the Super Bowl was here. They arrested a lot of people.
Yep.
They don't have this on the news because we shouldn't talk about real problems. Also, there's in the Vatican, one of the third highest ranking cardinal who ran the money is being subpoenaed for sexual abuse.
Yep.
I'm just saying, with great power comes great responsibility, but with great power also comes problems. And a lot of power comes corruptness, and a lot of corrupt people make it to the high ends of power.
Very true. Yep. But you know, the awesome thing about what we're doing right now is this is you know, let's say 1,000 people watch what we're doing. We don't really even have an agenda right now. We're talking, we're sharing information, but a lot of people don't know these things. They're not aware of these things, and honestly, a lot of people turn a blind eye because it's not pleasant. Well, these things are going to happen as long as we don't do anything about them. You know, there are always going to be people who want to go out and sell drugs or traffic people, or, you know.
What if we legalize all drugs?
I don't.
Just at Portugal, right? Have you seen the results?
Yeah, but we're not Portugal. You know, like that's the one thing. Like we have to look at. Like, yeah, Australia banned guns, but they have a different demographic. You know, Portugal. You know,
I don't like all these comments. Not from you. I'm just in general. We're always like, but they're different than us. Like. The whole thing I'm saying is we're all the same. We're all humans.
But I do think our demographics are different. And I think because we have a huge diversity of people in this country. We're so, like we have people from, from the Middle East and from Europe and from, from everywhere. And I know that's not necessarily the best thing, but I think we have to be very careful before changing, making big changes like that, because we never know how we're going to respond as Americans, because we're always outraged about things, like something, there's a civil war, but
there should have been a civil war a long time ago.
There should, and there would be.
If people understood how the Federal Reserve worked. Okay, wait. I got a book for you.
Mm-hmm.
Look at I got like tons of shelves of these things. This is what I read. I learn. Here it is.
Okay. I saw some of your books. I actually saw a couple I wanted to read.
Poor Charlie's Almanac's great. That's Warren Buffett's relatively silent business partner. He only invests in things he knows, hence why he doesn't invest in cryptocurrency and the internet, because he doesn't understand them. But here's a book. Hey, real quick, did you hear the final number that came out by Google? Did you watch? Yes, it was 2 days ago. They had Google CEO come on and talk about Russiagate. How much money do you think contributed to the ads in Russiagate? That was like the only thing covered on the news for like 6 months or a year. Guess how much money? Guess how much the dollar amount they came out with was?
Billions, I don't know, millions, billions, I don't know.
$4,700.
Really?
That is it.
Wow.
$4,700.
That's crazy.
What was the main thing talked about in the news for the last year and a half?
Russian interference.
It's bullshit. People are so stupid. Like, okay, wait.
However, you have to, a lot of that probably wasn't money based. The hacking and that sort of stuff, that doesn't necessarily require.
Okay. Fun thing. So there was I get heated about this stuff because people don't have an education on it because they haven't asked questions. So since they've been studies by, ironically, I think it was the Rockefeller Institute, from 1951 to I think it's 2010. Again, you got to look up, do your own research. I'm just spitballing numbers. They could be accurate, but they're not perfect. Mm-hmm. Guess how many elections America has interfered in overseas?
100. I don't know. I don't know the numbers, but a lot. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think the total number that was found officially was 84 incidents in 47 different countries.
Over what time period?
I think it was 40, 50 years.
Okay. Yeah.
And like, again, I can't quote you exactly. It was done by the Rockefeller Institute. So here's a book that I'm going to show you right here. You see that?
Yeah.
Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins. Mm-hmm. He worked for the CIA, and he talks in his book about going into countries in Latin America, essentially getting them into huge economic debt, killing off certain leaders to help put their political parties who would support the debt. It's all money. It's all finance. It's all power.
We are a capitalistic, above all, we're a capitalist society.
This is not a capitalist society. This is not capitalist.
More so than any other system.
No. America's like number 30 in freedom. It's Google studies on freedom index. Like, we're not, Singapore is significantly more capitalist than us. We have so many rules. Remember the term 50% of people are on some kind of government assistance? 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 80%. Is that capitalism? No.
But money does largely run how things work in this country.
Currency runs how things work.
Yeah.
Sorry, like I said, gold currency are different to me.
That's what you're a money person. I'm a psychology person.
No, but they're all connected because how we relate to money is part of our conditioning in how we choose to spend money, save money, etc.
Well, and a lot of, as they teach us in psychology that money is a conditioning thing, like, okay, I want a toy truck. Well, you're going to have to do the dishes in order to get money for the toy truck. Mm-hmm. But also, why do you want that toy truck? I don't know. Maybe I saw a commercial for it on TV where kids were having fun, so because, why does that commercial make me want it? Because I want to have fun. So essentially, I am working for money because I want to have fun. And it becomes this very long, rabbit with the carrot, holding
Mhm.
the carrot in front of the rabbit thing. And, honestly, I think a lot of people lose sight of why they're working for money and why money is so important. And I think that's why what you're doing now and what I did for a long time and still somewhat continue to do is so important, because money is not the number one important thing in the world. Things like happiness, love, the joy we're getting out of life,
Mhm.
like feeling good. Money's not going to make you feel good. It might buy things that might make you feel good, but the thing is, like, being happy in my mind is so much more important than how much money's in your bank account. We only live once, YOLO.
So YOLO.
Yeah.
So I resonate with that, with the idea that money will make you happy, but money will give you an Okay, currency. I'm gonna keep saying currency, not money.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll use the word currency.
Thank
Just
you. Just
yeah.
for me, it helps. Otherwise, I just get, it's like a tick. Like every time I hear the word money, I'm like, okay, what is money? Money's a mean of exchange, store of value, gold, silver,
Well,
whatever.
that's like if you were to say ego to me, I'd be like, what term? Because Sigmund Freud did not originally mean ego to mean what it means now. It is meant to mean like consciousness. But people,
Oh, totally. Fuck
yeah,
yeah. Yes.
yeah,
Yes. 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 Yes.
yeah, or like 10% of your brain. No, we do not use 10% of our brain. Different people use their brains in different amount, but like they're just like things that are just thrown around, and so I completely understand what you're talking about with the currency thing, because
Okay.
I have things like that
It's
too.
and it's an education thing too. Is
Yeah,
people don't have this education.
yeah,
Uh, I had a point. What was I? What were we talking about? We're talking about currency. Oh yeah. So I believe in this world, all we have are experiences and relationships.
yeah.
Our relationship, we don't talk for a while. All of a sudden we catch up. It's like bam, we just catch up, right? We're just already present. We're in each other's lives. We're able to communicate.
Mhm.
Experiences, traveling, spending time with your family, volunteering, working hard. These are all experiences that you have, right? These are where, to me, value comes in experiences and relationships. Currency and wealth provides you an opportunity to have more experiences and more relationships, because it frees up your time, because you don't have to trade your time for money in a traditional 9 to 5 manner.
But it can also tie up that time.
100%. Yes.
When we have a job, sometimes, like for example, now I'm finally getting on board with my job because I was hired through a temp agency, but I don't have vacation for quite a while. So therefore, I have to rely on whether or not my company will allow me to. I could go on vacation if I wanted to. I could go somewhere, but I want to keep my job. So I'm basically tied up, and I'm fine with it. I'm 100. I had a long vacation, because I decided not to work for a little while. It was the best decision I could have made. Honestly, like it wasn't 100% pleasant, but it was the best thing that I could have done, because I learned a lot. I changed the way that I needed to change. And I'm now at a place where I can be like, okay, I can finally work again.
Mhm.
But the thing is, money, it's all about balance. It's
Mhm.
really all about balance. People get too tied up in money. People get too tied up in not having money. It's all balance. Like, so much of life is balance. And I think I'm glad I learned that, and I'm glad that you learned it, because work, 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 work. Get my paycheck, save. Where does that get us?
Okay, I have a first of all, balance. I agree.
Mm.
That resonates really well.
Yep.
That to me, I have a Twitter handle, Spiritual Crypto, and
Mhm.
I like using that
I
because
saw that. That was interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
because for me, wealth is more than finance. Wealth is your mental health, your mental
Yep.
wealth, your physical wealth, your nutritional wealth, your
Power.
social wealth,
It's power.
yeah, it's power, and it's power in all these different categories, right? Like we're like Pokemon, right? We got all
Yep.
these different stats. Some of us start off with different stats. Some of us are more inclined and better. Some of us know hydro pump from the beginning. We got
Oh yeah, yeah.
we got an HM, or we got an HM for surf, which is like one of my favorite
Yeah.
moves.
Man, I could hypnotize you.
You
In no time flat.
put me to sleep, set some poisons on me. Like I'm just gonna drain. I'm just gonna drain
Yeah,
that slow build.
absolutely.
But with all that being said, it frustrates me because there's a quote that I might butcher, but we buy things we don't need,
Mhm.
to impress people we don't like,
Yep.
to show that we have been successful, right?
Yep.
So like the other day, I'm lucky because I have a lot of random contacts within the finance world. Actually, there's a man on Twitter I follow, Anthony Pompliano, who is a big hedge fund guy. He does a lot of crypto. His phrase he likes to use is buy Bitcoin, short the bankers. And if you know finance, basically it's saying bet on Bitcoin,
Yeah.
sell on banking. And I got to go to this hedge fund meeting, right? And I'm in a situation where like I'm lucky because I was able to obtain some assets when I saved money for a long time. I lived with my parents. I made sacrifices so I could buy a house. I bought a duplex about 3 years ago, and I'm living in it now. And ironically, I'm in foreclosure. And I'm doing this on purpose because there's a lot of really cool things and benefits if you have modifications on your property. Complicated, but I'm broke. Like I don't have cash. I had $3 cash, and I used the $3 to take a bus because I just got a car accident. My car's now not working because I got ran into by a DHL car. It's a whole nother story, but I only had $3 left to my name in cash. And I used it to take the bus to go to this hedge fund or to this bar to meet with some hedge fund wealthy people, right? Spiritually, mentally, financially, whatever, more so than me in a lot of ways. But I wore a suit, and I have suits because I used to work corporate banking, and I looked like I had a lot of money, right? I got my ring, I got my watch. Like I look like I'm so successful, but no one has any idea that I couldn't afford to go buy $1 at a gas station.
Yep.
And I say this not saying I have no assets. I'm saying I don't like to use US dollars because I think you have to be the change you want to see in the world.
Yep.
And I want to see a world without Federal Reserve banking.
Yep.
It's a whole nother deep discussion rabbit hole,
Yeah.
but we are sovereign for our own wealth.
You know, that kind of reminds me, you and I are both into hip hop. And I think that a lot of people look at what they see on TV. They see people bling, bling. A lot of that stuff is not theirs. A lot of those rappers who are so-called money, they don't have much money. I think, you know, the average professional musician doesn't make enough to support a regular life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all image, you know, and it is 100. There are some, I truly believe Lil Wayne probably is a millionaire. I don't think he has as much as he says he does, but I also think that there are a lot of people who wear these chains around and they wear the nice stuff, but they don't actually have the money. Yep.
I got silver chain on right now.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But here's the thing about that.
Got like a fake diamond in it. And
real quick, yeah. First of all, most diamonds and most things are fake because you can buy a fake one. You can tell by biting. Like I'm a big silver gold guy, so like I have assets, just not traditional.
Yeah. Yep.
But part of that is they want people to think that gold and silver necklaces and gold and silver jewelry are only worn by those people.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely.
Like gold and silver are only worn by people who are rappers or athletes or super famous stars. Yeah. And people want to buy things to look like those people. And I actually think one of the best investments you can make is a gold or silver chain for yourself. And I say it because anywhere you go in the world, you can turn this into wealth. No matter what happens, this is wealth. So do you know what's happened in Venezuela over the last 3 to 5 years? So they are a socialist country and the government controls their money, their printing press. And currently inflation rates are at over 1,000,000% a year.
It's insane.
So what that means is the cash that they have is rapidly deteriorating value because they keep printing more money and it makes the value of their money go down. And something that this is a Warren Buffett quote. It says, everyone looks like, let's say you're swimming, right? You're all in the water, right? You have no idea who's naked and who's not naked, right? You just see people head above water.
You'd like to hope that they're not.
You like to hope they're not naked. But You don't
Especially
know.
that guy.
Especially, especially the guy. Don't exercise, eat fast food every day. Like,
Yeah.
just whatever. But
She
you
can be
don't.
naked.
Oh, what a world! Oh, beautiful. Hey, all people are beautiful. All women are beautiful. All men are
Absolutely.
beautiful. Souls are beautiful.
Absolutely.
But we get what we put in. The more you work on yourself, the better, the more attractive you're going to be.
Yep.
That's just how it is.
Absolutely. Yep.
But when the tide comes in, that's when you find out who's naked and who's not naked, right?
Yep.
So this is a big thing in finance because most people who are millionaires, a lot of people who are 10 millionaires, they are paper millionaires. They're not actually asset millionaires because a lot of asset value is dependent on the financial system and how we use interest rates. So I'm worried right now because I'm trying to sell my house, and I'm actually worried we're about to go through a huge housing boom. Actually, I'm thinking we're going to go through a huge debt boom, which is even bigger than housing. That's another story. But I'm worried that I'm going to have a house, which is great, which is an asset, but where the debt in my house is worth more than the value of my house. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Yep.
So something that I really recommend for people is calculate their net worth, which is your assets minus your liabilities. So like you might be a millionaire, right? Like I might have $1 million in my stock portfolio, but 70% of it's tied up in my 401k. 10% of it is set up in bonds. Like I might not actually have access to most of that wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that is because you want your money to be earning more money for you, right? You want your currency to earn more currency.
Yep.
Because that's how most wealth occurs is you have an asset that produces income that produces money over the long run, which makes it therefore a more valuable asset because it produces more revenue. Yet most of these people don't actually have that much money. So they are cash poor, asset rich. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Bill Gates, for example, how much of his money is passive? It's, I don't know, 99.99999%.
No. Way lower than that. A lot of his wealth is tied up to Microsoft shares. Mm-hmm. He probably has a lot of his accounts. I don't know his personal financial situation, but like when you see a Forbes list of like who's worth what money, they're saying all their assets are worth this amount of money. They're not saying that they actually have that much money. They're saying their paper value is that much money. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But there's active and passive income, right? And active income would be like working at a McDonald's. Passive would be like you have a stock portfolio and it's either
dividends or something. Yeah. So they are different. Yeah. You have to work to build that passive income. It takes energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
But with all this being said, is how our financial system set up is guess what would happen if we paid off all our debt?
Man, I don't know. Pigs would start flying. Hell would freeze over.
You think so?
Yeah. That's what if we paid off all our debt. Are you talking about the country?
I'm talking about country, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, hell would freeze over. Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, it is mathematically impossible to pay off the debt.
Yeah. And that's what I mean by that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mathematically, being the system is a foundation, debt is fiat, fiat is debt. Mm-hmm. So for us, how it works is imagine we got some towers, right? Like here's let's say this is our life, right? You go to school, so this is your asset column, this is your debt column. You're born, let's say you're at 0. Technically, that's not true because we're all legally obligated to pay the federal debt. But that's a whole, so many rabbit holes, man. Depends. Again, taxes, debt, finance are all very murky, and it seems very confusing because every situation is different because the rules always are changing, and there's a lot. There's a lot of things going on. But let's say this is all the money in the world, right? $0, $0. In order to create debt, we have to create money or a currency. In order to create currency, we must create debt. How it works is debt is created with leverage, with fractional reserve banking, with how lending works. So to create debt, this is how it works. You are mathematically impossible. So when you pay off debt, let's say you pay off your credit card bill, right? Let's say you have a credit card and you owe $30 a month. And let's say you have a 0% interest rate, hypothetically. As you pay debt, both wealth and debt are destroyed. So it is actually impossible in our current system to have no debt because there would also be no currency. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that
Like,
makes complete sense.
no, you don't. No one learns this. They don't teach you this ever.
No.
And like ever, they can't teach you that, because if people knew this, they would say, "I'm not going to pay my bill," and then what would happen is no one would pay their bill, and all the companies would go bankrupt because no one's paying for anything. Yet they can't actually do anything to you most of the time except for hurt your credit score.
Or they can garnish your wages in some cases. I know.
Yes and no. It depends.
The government actually is garnishing their wages for the student loan not being paid off, and it was a ridiculous situation. But yeah, the government, man, they'll start taking your money out of your paychecks.
On paper, guess what is the biggest financial asset for the U.S. government?
Honestly, it's student loans, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How messed up is that?
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. Well, I just got a text from a friend who I'm pretty sure it needs my attention, but this has been awesome, Henry. I didn't expect to go this long, but we had a lot of good things to talk about.
It's already 3:15. Wow.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know we can wrap it up. I'd love to do this again.
Absolutely.
Like, everything's connected. And like, one of my challenges is I like learning about everything. So I have something to say about everything.
Absolutely.
And I gotta listen to you more, man. I talk too much.
Oh no, I like listening, man. You know? I gotta listen more.